Go ahead and get into it. Welcome, everybody, to episode number 2 of 4 Pointed with myself and the one, the only, the god of casting himself, Mr. Colin, TheCrow Clarke. Colin, what's up, buddy?
You know, I've had better days because normally you're always right, but with that statement, you're just dead wrong, man. That's the problem. I'm so used to you being right when you're actually wrong, it just breaks my heart, makes my whole day upset. I don't even know if I can focus now. Is down up and up down right at this point? Is the sky still blue? I don't know. I'll have to go out and check at this point.
Yeah, I can't see out my window to let you know. Sorry.
It's all right. It's all right.
I'm a gamer. I keep the blinds closed and the COVID out. So
the COVID out. Look, we're gonna help with that. All right, we're gonna help with that. Don't you worry.
This is a very special episode where we're going to have a special segment of COVID prevention brought to you by Colin while I take care of business. But without further ado, let's go ahead and hop into the first subject of the North American Pro standings. We saw the last week of the Pro League for North America take place last Sunday. The matches have concluded. I know you're probably pulling up the results, and I'm going to do the same.
Well, I can't remember exactly who was 4, 5, and 6. I know at the very end of the night with Rise Nation coming through and getting that they 4-0'd, I think, for the weekend.
Mm-hmm.
I do believe they didn't drop a map, so I know they finished third overall. I just can't remember who was 4, 5, and 6.
Well, the crazy thing about last weekend was it was one of the first times where the only seed that couldn't change was our seed, first seed. Every single other place could have potentially changed if there were any kinds of upsets or just weird things that happen. So it was.
So you're telling me that y'all with a 13-1 almost perfect record, you couldn't have changed? Is that what you said?
Well, yeah, literally we couldn't have. As soon as we beat Quarantine the week before, there was no way for us to drop down below Quarantine since we were 2-0 against them in the head-to-head. So they could have tied us in a win-loss if we bombed against, who did we play? PDHM and Hive. But they wouldn't have passed us because of the head-to-head. But
the tiebreakers.
Parallax, if they had gone 2-0, one of their wins
secured 3.
Yeah, I believe. And then Rise could have actually dropped it lower if they went 0-2. If they went 2-0, then they passed Parallax, assuming that Parallax lost. So it was a pretty big weekend. Even like near the bottom, I think PDHM and Rebels were pretty much solidified for the bottom spots, which is kind of surprising.
Look, let's just leave it at the fact that it was one of those times. This weekend was basically walking in the subway with no idea what sandwich you were coming out with. All right, you looked at the menu and you said, "It could be anything, boys. Just dealer's choice. Throw it at me. And we're just gonna see how all the chips fall when the end of the cards are dealt."
And then you get the nasty old tuna fish that they were supposed to throw away.
Damn.
So I want to touch on Rebels because I feel like, to me, of this Pro League, now that we're said and done, Rebels is probably the biggest disappointment for me. What do you think?
I wholeheartedly agree, and I'm not sure. It's weird because as much as I saw them, they were going to gain this momentum. They had a great roster, a solidified roster. I was like, this is going to be awesome. And then they had the week where they had to bring Noxious in instead of Sleepy Time, and they performed pretty good. And I was like, maybe even if they have to drop somebody and keep Noxious in the lineup, they won't lose but so many steps. Mm-hmm. And then it was just like, the chemistry kept going further and further away from where it was, where I saw it in Mexico City, even when they had Escamani as their coach in Mexico City. That team performed very well, including against that crowd, because they were there on a side station. They were surrounded by a sea. I said, this is a team of the future. This is a team that's really going to take some strides forward in the next quarter of the Pro League, because there's no way they're not going to make it in the Pro League. And then all of a sudden, I kept seeing them just take fight after fight after fight, and they kept making these decisions where I'm like, this can't be a joint decision. This is like two people basically dictating. And I don't know, I'm not in their comms, but it just looked like it was so disconnected, so disconcerted. And I was like, something has to be wrong here. There's internal issues, or they really just aren't ready to perform without Crash plus Noxious. It was weird to see it be okay without Sleepy. Yeah. And when I say okay, it wasn't like it was the same level, but they could manage it. It wasn't like they needed triage out there. They were just had a little cough. You know what I'm saying?
Well, my question is, and you've touched on a little bit, with Osby filling in, have we seen like an official story? Because I've heard rumors, but I don't know what is really happening that's making Crash unable to play and Osby filling in. Nothing against Osby, he's not a bad player, but when you have a team that has the LAN experience together, has been working together for months, you come on as a new coach, like that's already going to be one adjustment. But then to add into that, now the coach is playing and has to learn that role and Crash's spots and all of that. It makes me wonder, is that affecting what we're seeing?
I think it has to be that. I mean, it was one thing when he could play the support role, because Crash, even though he's a support player, he's still got great mechanical movement. He's still technically very skilled. He can be in those fights a lot.
Definitely.
And when he filled in for Sleepy Time, Noxious could pretty much be a full support slayer. He could play the 1v1s. They could put Crash closer to the fight. It's one of those things. And when they lose Crash instead of Sleepy Time, and they got to take Crash out of those fights and put Sleepy Time into those slots where Crash was, because they can't really take Noxious out of those 1v1s, because at the end of the day, that's kind of what his specialty would be in Gears 5. He'd be a 1v1 player. He'd know how to play people for damage, know how to play people for downs.
Mm-hmm.
It just seemed like it just messed up the flow that they had. It messed up the positioning and the spots, and that team was very much built around you have to fit into certain pegs. It was a round cue, it was a round cylinder into a round peg, it was a square into a square, a block into a block. You know what I'm saying? Like, they had very much defined roles, I think, when you looked at them through Mexico City in the first couple of weeks of Pro League.
So it makes me wonder then, going into this major this weekend, starting tomorrow, which version of Rebel are we going to see? Are we going to see the version with Crash, or are we going to see the version with Osby? Why hasn't there been anything officially said as to why that's taking place? I mean, if it's an internet issue, you think, in 2 weeks they figure that out, right? So,
well, I think Rezik actually said in my stream, I'd have to go back and watch the rebroadcast, but I want to almost like stake like $10 on it that he came into my stream when I was confused about it, and he said our Noxious is our replacement for the rest of Pro League and the major. I'm pretty sure he coupled both, so I'm pretty sure we're gonna have Noxious, Sleepy, Rezik, Zerp, and Jerp as the team going into the major.
Seems like a very interesting decision. Hopefully Crash is okay. Hopefully it's not like a thing where he's gotten sick or something like that. I mean, it's got to be disappointing, overall for the team to be able to, or to be like having to play with a sub. But I mean, the roster rules are the roster rules, I guess. So I respect them for still going out there and trying and swinging.
Oh yeah, and that's all they can do this weekend, right? I mean, they're going to go out there and play like they ain't got nothing to lose, because I mean, they don't. They have everything to gain from doing well this weekend. More money, a higher spot. I think they'd have to finish like third or fourth not to get relegated. Like, they'd have to have like Hive or somebody finish way down the list and have them finish like third or fourth overall not to get relegated.
Yeah.
But it's one of those things where you just punch above your weight class this weekend. Just try to not creep up on people, try to just overwhelm people.
Yeah. Well, a team like that, I mean, and a team like PDHM, again, like solid teams, but they can come into this weekend with that underdog card. They can come in and play with nothing to lose, because, they're down there tied in those bottom spots. The other thing we saw was Vanquish, who came in late to the Pro League, actually pass Hive with a better record, even if you add the 0-4 start that old ex-Mazer, aka La Familia. If you add that record,
Pain.
Yeah, now Pain. If you add that 0-4 onto Vanquish's record, that still puts him at a higher record, higher win-loss than Hive. So Vanquish, amateur team, for all intents and purposes, comes in and qualifies, and then is top 5 out of 8 teams.
Can I pose something to you? Because I'd like to hear you're a storied coach. You watch these teams week in and week out. I think you can break it down probably on a better coaching level. You might be able to tell me if I'm seeing this the wrong way. A lot of the times when I saw Vanquish, I actually equated them a lot to a team that was already in the Pro League. I saw Vanquish and PDHM being similar in the way that their play styles were.
Mm-hmm.
It was just Vanquish kept winning a lot of these 1v1 battles they took. They would overextend. They'd send Precision somewhere and say, all right, Precisions, you're all by yourself for a minute. You need to win this 2v1, or you need to win a 1v1 and keep the pressure on their side of the map. And it would come out in their favor, and Vanquish is now winning these maps. They're winning these rounds, whereas PDHM would find themselves in those same spots where maybe somebody'd OE a little bit or try to break through, and they wouldn't succeed in those same spots. Do you see that happening? Do you see that as a good equivocation, that they were almost mirror images of each other? They had a lot of similar characteristics with young guns. They took a lot of extra fights, took a lot of shotgun fights. It's just Vanquish came out with winning those fights.
I I do, and I also think Vanquish looked a little bit more together as a team. One of the things that we noticed about PDHM is it was pretty easy to start picking them apart. It almost looked like there was almost like a little bit of a tilt factor. You know, they'd come out tough maybe the first round or two, and if they didn't go their way, then it almost became gradually easier as the map went on compared to, and I'll give credit where credit is due, compared to a team like Quarantine, where like the first two rounds, they come out swinging, but they also start to pick up pace a little bit as the map goes on. So the other thing about the VQ roster is I believe Handles and Yachty were part of the PDHM team in Mexico, right?
They were. They
were the little
indeed.
New York squad is what we're calling them.
I called them the Five Boroughs. That's what I called them on stream.
So we've got you know, like LAN experience with two of them. They've been teammates for a little while. Precision has impressed the hell out of me. Rocky is good. Cells is good. I mean, it's a good like up and coming. It reminds me of like a team that in Gears of War UE or Gears of War 4 Vex would pick up. Do you remember like the org?
Oh,
Vex?
yeah.
Like one of those rosters of young guns that they would just find out of nowhere, and next thing you know, they're like pressuring like, you know, the bottom tier pro teams, and then they're scrimming pro teams, and then they're playing even higher level, and then they're the next pros.
I used to joke around with people when I'd see Vex had a roster. I would see it on the strat, and I'd get this image in my head of the Vex org owner. He'd like open the door to the Gears locker room, and he would just look for the 5 toughest looking guys in the room and just be like, "You 5, come with me. We're about to screw somebody's day up." And the 5 of them would walk out, and they'd mess up one person's day in the tournament. It didn't matter if they messed up more than that. They literally would go in, knock one team out for no apparent reason other than they just had the shotgun skill to do it. And I'd just be geeking out afterwards like, how did they not see this coming, man? All 5 of them dudes are just so technically skilled. Even back in UE with the not the Vex squad that finished in the Vex squad that finished in Columbus, the Columbus Vex squad. Didn't they finish like top 6?
Yeah, that was the one. Yeah. Are we talking like old Columbus? Like
like the finals Columbus from UE.
Yeah, that was Domes and Neglect.
Yeah, that team pulled up.
Yeah, I mean, I remember them giving us a run for our money. They took us to tiebreaker War Machine, if I remember correctly. Yeah, I mean, this is like the up and coming team in my opinion. I always looked at Hive that way, and then Hive like placed well at the last 2 events, and I was like, okay, like Hive is starting to kind of hit their stride. And then this last split has been really disappointing from my perspective for Hive, but I've been impressed with the Vanquish roster. I think VQ has. They came out swinging. They looks like their first week in the Pro League, they 2-0'd Hive, but then they lost to PDHM. So a 1-1 week, but you know, I don't think anyone would have expected that to be the results. And
they whipped the talent out. All right, that's coming out swinging. All right.
And it looks like they're not afraid to try things. It looks like they're a team that it doesn't play with like that almost like overbearing fear / respect of other teams. Like they don't load into a lobby and be like, oh shit, that's explosives over there. Okay, like I'm gonna be a little bit safe. I don't want to die. Like he's really good. Like they play like anybody on any team is just a random pub kid. So I respect that. I respect the way they play. I think there's a lot more that they need to learn. But overall, I mean, for their first split being 5th place, that's not bad at all.
No, not bad at all. Look, I see them. They're gonna do the same exact thing come this weekend. They're gonna go into it, and they're gonna take every opportunity to try to just improve the stock of the players and of, for lack of a better phrase, the org. I mean, they got taken out of PDHM. That's in 5 new players' hands, and they said, all right, look, Vanquish took a shot on us. I know they were in control at the start, and then Vanquish takes a shot of them. They pick up Vanquish. Vanquish is doing a lot of good PR for them. They tweet out when they're playing. They get the GIFs with it. I mean, they did the execution GIFs every time they'd beat somebody. And I think at the end of the day, when you're a younger gun and the young cat in the scene, that means a lot to you. When somebody has your back, they show that kind of faith in you. They're willing to put their social media power behind you and try to pump you up. That's got to mean a lot to a young gun. That's got to be good. Same thing can be said still for the PDH team. Their social media team has been great over there. I actually loved today. I got to play ranked with Crushmo last night.
Okay. With
Crushmo and Great. So, and we had some good times. We were just laughing and joking and cutting up. And I posed the question. I don't know if you saw the tweet. I was like, how is Crushmo so good at the game? Because we were playing King of the Hill, and there were times where we would how Sweaty King can be sometimes.
Oh, yeah.
And all of a sudden, Crushmo just flipped a switch and hit it into sixth gear. He did both at the same time, and we would be like near him in eliminations and downs, and then nobody in the map would be close to him. He would just fly away from all of us in elims and downs, everything. Time on the hill, and it was crazy. And I was like, how is he so good? And PDHM tweeted out that it was going to be 4 Crush Mo's playing for PDHM this weekend with 2 Dwarf Mo's. Like, they had the two mini Crush Mo's that they called Dwarf Mo's, and I was like, you know what? That's a scary friggin' team based on what I saw last night.
Yeah, I mean, Crushmo has been that guy for a while. It's almost like just a matter of like if he wants to be, like how invested he is in the match. Like Crushmo is like a clutch factor, really. Like he was in Gears of War 4 as well. I think he has that ability to really pull up and like carry a team. It's just a matter of making it consistent. So it's it's always cool when you kind of see that, like you said, the 6th gear of Crush kind of kick in. What about the rest of the teams? Was there anything else that really stood out to you from this last week of Pro League and the final standings?
Something that actually stood out to me, and I'm going to go ahead and say it. I was talking about it earlier in our meetings and stuff with the rest of the talent team, but 2 weeks ago, when people were starting to say, like, Hive only shows up online and stuff, 2 weeks ago, I'd have laughed at you because I was like, they're not even showing up online right now. They're beating up on the lower end of the bracket, and they're getting stomped out on the top end. I said, that's not showing up to me. That's not them putting up the fight that I know they can put up, especially with the guys they got on that team. And then all of a sudden, these last 2 weeks, I don't know if contract bonuses were put on the line, if something was said in a conference call, but I have seen like a tale of 2 teams. I saw them turn it around. They went, I think it's in maps, I think it was 4-1 over the last 4 games they played in Pro League. And I'm like, to drop one map, to go 2-0, or they went 2-0 this week with 4-0 as their maps, and then they went 2-0 last week with 4-1 as their map. So 8-1 literally. I was like, how is this a completely different team from the first 3 weeks? I know they were still holding on to that, or they didn't have the 4, they didn't have the 3. They had the 3 seed, and then they lost it because they did the silly change. I say silly. They did the right change in the middle of the season, but it's silly to do it in the middle of a season. But anyway, like Rise all of a sudden said, you know what? Let's go ahead and show we are a top contending team. Yeah. These last 2 weeks, they turned it on. They clicked it on. I've been actually more impressed on that team with Avexy's ability, especially going into this major, because I don't know how useful, don't take this the wrong way, I don't know how useful coaches are going to be, because I don't think you're allowed necessarily in the lobby, are you?
No, I'm not. Coaches are allowed in the lobby. There's workarounds, and pretty much any Pro League coach knows them and is using them for Pro League matches and for UMG tournaments, but it's still not the same as being able to stand behind your guys all, real time, all 5 monitors in front of you, fist bumps, hype up, and it's a different experience.
That's kind of to my point, is like, I think if they could have Chris behind them, if they were boot camping, if they were somehow all in the same friggin' room and Chris is behind them coaching, I'd give them the best odds to beat y'all going into this weekend. If you asked to add me, like, I know Vegas would have y'all like a 2-1 favor. They'd be like, look, no way in hell we're going to have anybody bet up on UIU and make money off of it. So I would, like, the next highest betting odds, I'd go in there and I'd be like, put my money on Rise. If they were all in the same room and they had Chris with them. Without Chris, though, that takes away a lot of that play calling ability. But the thing that I'm going to go ahead and say might surprise you, I've been horribly, and I say horribly for a very specific reason, I've been horribly impressed with Avexy's ability to still slay out, still support his other teammates, but still make these play calls. I've seen him slow up in mid-map and almost do this thing where it's like he's trying to information gather. And I know he's not to the level of like a franchise or an explosive right now. I know those 2 IGLs will always still be on the Mount Rushmore of we need a split-second play call. I've seen Avexy's kind of take his time. He gets the information from his teammates, makes the call, and then if he's got to be a part of the play, he either makes it happen or he helps to ensure that it happens. And to me right now, he's probably one of the best 3-4 players in the game because of all of his responsibilities and how he's making those happen. Yeah, I think that you can't take that away from him. The level of pressure that is put on his shoulders by that team, and him causing all of those reactions and still getting wins and getting round wins and making the right decisions. I get my hats off to him, man. I would if I had a cowboy hat on right now, I'd tip that shit at him.
I mean, I agree with you. I think Avexy's is, I would say he's probably, in my opinion, the best player on Rise. I think he's one of the best players that's like in the Pro League overall. I think he's one of the best players in Gears because he's got not only, like you mentioned, the clutch factor, the slaying ability, the ability to pull out that support role, the skill with the power weapons. He can really do it all at a mechanical level. But then he also acts as an IGL, at least as far as I'm aware, for that team. That's hard to do. A lot of people, their gameplay really goes down when they're IGLing, because you're focusing on so much more of the big picture and not like your little window of a picture. So the fact that he's able to really balance that all out is pretty incredible to me. And I think you're right. I think Rise these last few weeks, I don't think they dropped a map in week 6 or 7, right?
I thought they dropped 1 in 6, but I could be wrong. I thought it was one map they dropped in 6, because I think they had to play Quarantine in week 6.
They played, so week 6 they 2-0'd Hive according to the standings, which I don't think this is right, because this says Rise beat Quarantine 2-0. Is that true?
It could very well be. I honestly don't remember from week 6. They weren't on my stream, so I wouldn't have remembered. I remembered them 2-0ing the hell out of Rebel. I mean, that was quick.
Yeah, so they beat Rebel in week 6 off broadcast. They beat Hive in week 6 on broadcast. Week 7, this most recent weekend, it says they 2-0'd Quarantine and that they 2-0'd Parallax, which I didn't realize they 2-0'd Quarantine.
Yeah, apparently. Oh, that's right, because it went round number 9 on Training Grounds, and I thought that was the map they lost, but they pulled it out because the Quarantine did the thing that Rise has struggled with, where they put the drop shot at the U. And y'all saw that, I think, on Emergence Days. Y'all played them on E Days, didn't you?
This week, no, we didn't. We played Estral. And oh, you mean Quarantine? We played Quarantine in the finals.
Yeah, and y'all put the drop at the U, and then Quarantine, even though they're stronger at that fight, y'all figured out what their system was. Quarantine tried to do the same thing, where they put the drop on Rise on mainstream, and when they put the drop down, Rise actually got to the back of the U a lot quicker than they did 2 out of the 4 rounds that it was down.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think another part of that too is, Quarantine. Well, I guess at that point they could have still because they already beat Hive, so they went into that match versus Rise knowing like this isn't going, win or lose, this isn't going to really change our position in the pro league. So I could imagine, there's definitely always the pride, where they want to win, especially with a team like Quarantine. We would be the same way. But you always have to take in that consideration. The match meant nothing to Quarantine. It only meant the world to Rise. So I imagine Rise is playing pedal to the metal. This means a lot. I mean, it was a couple $1,000 match, and to Quarantine it, we win or lose, we're second place. So
I would hate to actually find out that that's how they actually treated it, especially with it being the week before a major.
Yeah.
To me, that wouldn't be acceptable. If I was on that team and somebody was like, I didn't play it as hard as I could and we got 2-0'd by Rise, I'd be like, excuse me, sir?
I'm just trying to give context out there that it's a possibility.
Look, I got your context. If I was on that team, I'd get your context is right.
That being said, Rise, going back to what we were talking about, Rise has been playing well. I mean, they've been playing really, really well the last 2 weeks. I think they're starting to come back into what we expected from them going into this pro league. I think that they've always been kind of like a weird team to me, and I mean that they have on paper that is a talented roster with a Vexies, Detox, Shock, Drix, arguably one of the best home hill players in the game. He was one of the only people who would put up a fight against Alex in Gears 4. And Inzim being the young gun, the up and coming talent, and that roster is so good on paper, and then it just seems like it's so inconsistent. The names aren't matching up to who we're seeing play on a week to week basis.
I look at it exactly how you just put it, is the inconsistencies have to go. In the past 2 weeks, they've shown they've been very consistent for 2 games on a Sunday. The big stick right now is, can they possibly string 2 games on Friday, 3 games on Saturday, 2 games on Sunday? Can they string, these 7 or 8 games in a row over 3 days?
Yeah.
Can they string all those together and not drop one and then have to play, 11 or 12 games in a weekend and have to string 11 or 12 together?
Yeah.
And I think a lot of that comes down to 2 big things. And you and I joked about it last week because you and I have talked about picks and bans until the earth stops turning.
Mm,
The more they can win the pick and ban, and I don't know if that's on Avexes or if that's on Affinity. I'm hoping it's on Affinity just because I think he can give a full 100% to thinking about exactly what maps people are uncomfortable with.
mm-hmm.
I think if they can win the pick and ban every single time, and by that just make sure they get 2 maps that they're good to very comfortable on.
Yeah.
I think that takes a lot of that inconsistency away. I was shocked, and when I say like shocked, I was like shaken by how bad or how poorly they played on Vascar this past week. I mean, I was taken aback by it, and I was like, I hope I don't see Vascar all weekend for them. If somehow Vascar gets through with the way they just performed, where Inzem and Detox just stayed dead on the back tank. I think Detox had 1 elimination through 4 rounds, or 1 kill through 4 rounds, and like I think it was like 4 assists. 1 and 4, 1 and 4, yeah, 1 kill, 4 assists through 4 rounds. I was like, there's no way on God's green earth I'm letting Vascar through. That becomes an auto ban.
Yeah.
I don't care if they're I would rather them be uncomfortable on a map that would be their normal auto ban if I don't have to see that all weekend, because I just couldn't imagine having to deal with that more than once in a week.
Yeah.
If I was Rise.
And
so I think they have to find the comfortability level.
And the crazy thing is, Vascar actually used to be their auto ban up until I think like week 5, whatever week we played them in the Pro League. I think that was week 5. Yeah, week 5. We actually picked Vascar because they didn't ban it, and up until that point, it was their auto ban. Though we had like a feeling they had kind of been like playing with it on the side, practicing it a little bit, just saying it was their auto ban, which a lot of teams do. So we were still confident. It was still one of our better maps, and they smoked us on it like 5-1 out of nowhere. They're playing super aggressive, like almost like it's that kind of aggressive where you're like, why would he push that? But it works.
Yeah.
And they absolutely smoked us on it. And I think since then their confidence for that map went up, and they've been less worried about banning it, except for teams that are really good on it, like Quarantine. I think they banned it against Quarantine. So maybe they just thought like, hey, like this is a map we're comfortable on. We beat UYU on it. Like we're not as bad as we thought. Let's let it rock. And then
this happens.
That team kind of exposes flaws.
So that's I think, as we talked about it, our biggest shocks coming out of the standings were seeing how Hive finished out, seeing how Vanquish came out. Like a bad shock was Hive, a good shock was Vanquish, and then we talked about teams that struggled probably as teams that struggled with PDHM, a team that struggled in Rise early, and then they come around and turn it up. I want to get your thoughts. One last team before we can move this on, because I know we've been jibber jabbering about these standings a lot. I just want to get your feelings going into this weekend, because it looked like for about 3-4 almost out of 7 weeks, for probably 5 out of the 7 weeks, Parallax looked like they were damn near unstoppable. They were, every week they would come together, they'd have a game plan, and they'd execute it. And then this past week, it was like 5 people account recovered for them, and it was 5 people that play Koth all day.
Yeah. I think,
do you think is that a bad sign for them going into the major? Or is it good that they got this kind of, I want to say, wake up call almost?
I'm not, if I'm them, or as an outside perspective looking in to their team, on behalf of their team, again, this is not me like trash talking. This is me like on behalf of their team. I'm not concerned. If I'm them, I know that I went 8-6 in the Pro League. They haven't, at least as far as I've heard in terms of rumors, there's no like, talks of roster changes. They've got a good coach. They've got a solid roster that's not getting crazy on Twitter. They're doing their thing. They're practicing, which are all good signs.
I don't know. Toady got a little crazy with that controller. Okay. I saw that thing and it made me vomit a little bit in my mouth. All right.
Other than that, I do think that their team, even though they had really strong showings, they pulled up against us, and gave us our only loss. They pulled up against Quarantine one day. They just failed to close out, but that should have been a win for them. I think Parallax is one of those teams that it really depends on the day. We've talked about like the consistency a little bit, like we mentioned with the Crushmo. There's a lot of teams that don't consistently come out at their best. For example, the first time that we played Parallax, I think they got 1 round across the 2 maps total. And then the second time we played them, it looked like a completely different roster where they came out swinging. They 5-1'd us, I think, or 5-0'd us first map.
5-0'd you on district,
Yeah,
and then
5-0'd us.
y'all beat them 5-1 on map 2.
Which might have been, I don't remember what map 2 was. But
it was exhibit, and then it went to Vascar, and it was 5-3.
Yeah, so they looked like a completely different team than even just the first time we played them. So for them, I'm not worried about if this last week looked a little bit more fluky than the weeks before. I'm just focusing on getting the consistency up so that you can kind of balance out any concerns you might have had. Like, they know they've seen their potential, they've seen their average. It's time to find their way more on the side of the potential rather than on the side of the average, which I think stood out a little bit more last week. But I can see them being a top contender for this next one.
Well, I'm just praying we get nothing but good games from Friday to Sunday, because, I mean, you get to kick back, relax, and try to game plan. I'm the one that has to spit all that hot air over the airwaves.
Yeah, it's not kick back and relax, and trust me, it's some of the most stressful times. But let's go ahead and go in while we're talking about results. We'll go into the UMG recap. So the UMG was Tuesday, the Emergence Day Series. Thank you, UMG, for hosting those. A little bit of a different lineup this time because of some of the stuff that we're going to talk about, or I'm going to talk about in a little bit. What did you think of the UMG tournament?
So one of my favorite things about UMG is I know that they do kind of an invitational format, so you always get this very high caliber, very consistent, great gears. Mm-hmm. But I am, without a doubt, I was pleased to get to see more of Agarthus, because I normally only see them in Challenger League. And I know that Krabby's really good in the Challenger League. I know he kind of beats up on a lot of people, and he's one of those mainstays from Gears 4. He's always been a high skill player, a high technicality player. I think he even wagers some of your boys every now and again. I think he gets the chance to do that. So I was very excited to get to see more of him, especially in a setting where he's going to be playing a pro team. And I thought that was great for that team. I was really excited to see that. But once we got past that first round, I basically looked at it as, this is basically going to become business as usual, especially when we got into that last matchup. I looked at it and I said, I want to see it go a map 3. I really do. I think we're going to get a good one here, Reflections. And I was trying to hype it up, and in the back of my head, I said, they have not fared well in the past few weeks in this matchup. This is not a matchup, if I'm quarantined, that I'm very favoring right now. Then I think they went nuts with that drop shot on the top of entrance, man. That blew me. I ain't seen the drop shot up there in forever and a day, so I was just excited. I was a kid in the candy store to see how that fight was going to come out. So God bless quarantine for putting the drop shot down up there. Yeah. I think that we know what their struggles are. We know how great y'all have been. So I think the thing I took away from UMG is I was really enjoying seeing a team like Agarthus get a chance. I got to see Rise Nation again. I got to see if they stayed on that same hot streak from Sunday. They didn't, so I'm not sure if that's a worrying point for me. But I looked at it as, the teams that I expected, Quarantine and UIU, they showed up, they showed out, they made their way to a grand finals against each other, which is what most of the betting world is probably doing right now, is going to put their money on Quarantine and UIU to meet each other in a grand finals on Sunday. But I was really pleased to see Agarthus, especially because I just like those kids. They seem like they got I don't want to say good head on their shoulders, but they seem like they want it. They seem like they really want to compete.
Well, Garthus was the former, if I'm not wrong, it's the former EGYX roster from the LATAM Pro League last split, I believe, right?
It was.
So, I mean, they're not new to the pro scene, at least, like in my opinion, they had Mexico under their belt. They have a whole pro league split under their belt. I know they've been getting scrims because I've added them to the pro scrim Discord. So I know they're getting scrims against top teams. We've scrimmed them. I think that there's still a lot for them to improve on, but it definitely is cool to see them getting more practice in something like the UMG. And then the rest of the results, I feel like there were some surprises. Who did Hive play? I was trying to find the bracket. Who did Hive play first round?
Astral. I think Astral beat him.
Yeah, so that was a surprising one to me too.
I hate to say it, that wasn't surprising to me simply because of how much of a struggle Hive has been all quarter.
Yeah.
And I haven't gotten a chance to sit down and talk to those guys. Me, today during media day, I'd have been sitting outside of y'all's friggin' photo rooms waiting for y'all to come out to talk to everybody. Mm-hmm. So this is one of the first times that I'm not really getting to have that opportunity, and it kind of upsets me because I'd have sat those 6 dudes down with CT right there on one end, Demise and TJ on the other end, probably Tidy right there in the middle playing moderator, because I always like how Tidy just kind of keeps a calm, level head through everything. He smiles every now and again. I always tell him he's a handsome bastard when I see him. But I sat him down and I said, all right, boys, I got one question only. What the hell happened? That's it. Because to me, you say that was a surprise. Estral has to show out this weekend.
Yeah.
They just have to show out for reasons. they got stuff on their back they got to deal with, and especially because I know they had a rough showing at Mexico City. So for them, this is redemption now. This is them trying to get back to that position we all saw them in at San Diego. So you say that's a surprise, and I mean, to me, that just looked really good, if you ask me.
Yeah, I mean that's true. They definitely looked pretty good, at least better than what we've been seeing in the Pro League. And you're right. I mean that's a storied team. You've got 2 people who were grand finalists in Mexico, 3 people who were grand finalists in San Diego. Right? So you've got a team of people who have been there, been there, done that, other than win. So it'll be interesting to see how they play this weekend, especially. Given everything else. And then the other thing that I thought was interesting was, and I can't personally, I can trigger the conversation for you. I can't talk too much about it, but the pick and bans for the grand finals. I thought the maps ended up being interesting for the grand finals because it was I don't get to watch us play Quarantine on those maps that often.
I think Quarantine took it as an opportunity. Because again, the betting world is probably looking at the 2 of you. Like if they're going to put money out, they're going to put it out on the 2 of you. And Franchise, as you know, he's a game planner. He wants to have a sense of what he needs to deal with or what he has to figure out going into these matchups. I honestly believe that was Franchise looking at it as, we've taken some lashings in the past couple of weeks to UIU. Let's use this as a learning opportunity. Let's see what we might be able to catch them off guard with. Let's see what we might be able to figure out. I mean, it was one of those things where when we saw Bunker, I said, ooh, Bunker's a great matchup for both of them. Look, Quarantine has Mortifies, who was on that Mazer roster, who gave y'all's first loss in what seemed like a year and 6 days.
Yeah, on Bunker. That's what they sent us home on.
So maybe he might have some inside info. And then Franchise has always kind of been a thorn in y'all's side. He might not have beaten y'all as many times as people might want him to, but he's taken a lot of maps off of you. So I look at it as he's like, all right, maybe Bunker can be it. And then they have a snipe and a torque on it. And I'm like, who the hell preps for a snipe and a torque on center line on Bunker? What?
Yeah.
Like I saw it come out. I made the comments or reflections. So I think honestly, I looked at that map pool as. And then we go to Asylum, and I said, this is not going to work out well for anybody on Asylum against UIU. Obviously, I swear to God, I think y'all are the what are they called? The wardens of Asylum. Y'all are the people that put the people in the straitjackets in an Asylum because y'all own that bastard. Y'all just, people got to go crazy playing that map against y'all. But I digress. I think he took that as his opportunity to just test the waters, see what y'all's strengths and weaknesses were. He found out that Praise really knows how to use a sniper rifle, and if Fran didn't realize it, Mortify sure as hell did. So I just think for one of those, I think that's what it was. I think it came down to just Franchise saying, let's see what we can do against them on these different maps. Let's see if we could even put these into our map pool against them, or if we have to try to pick around them. I mean, it's one of those things where I almost look at it in a grand finals. If we go best of 5 to grand finals, even with a double elimination bracket, you'll probably see Asylum might be like the 5th map. He might have to ban out something else, or Asylum might be the auto ban, and you might get Icebound on the 5th map, something like that, because he had to test the waters, man. That's just my opinion. That's coming from an objective third party.
Yeah, I think that was definitely a good opportunity for both teams to test the waters against each other. So I definitely could see that as well for the pick and bans. And then obviously, we came out on top, but I thought it was a good tournament overall. I liked seeing new faces. And it's funny, you're talking about us being the wardens of Asylum. The team that I think is probably the best Asylum team in the game, specifically, like our map, like everyone knows our map is Exhibit, right? The team that their exhibit is Rebels, and I said that wrong. Rebels, their exhibit is Asylum. It's actually just insane, and I think since the switch to Osby, it's not been as much so. But even in like the early weeks of the Pro League, like when you watched the matches, like Rebels won Asylum map 2 or map 1, which whenever they got to pick it, every single time. It didn't matter who they played against. they play Quarantine 5 whatever on Asylum.
But since they switched, the problem has been since they switched, and I hate to say it this way, Crash a lot of the times had those utility nades, one or the other set, and he had perfect placement on them. If you really break down after Crash stepped away and Osby was in that lineup, if you break down the utility grenade usage on those two maps, that's why I think y'all are the wardens of that map. That's why I was so confident in saying that. Their utility grenade use on that map has not been up to snuff, if you ask me. It was just one of those things where I used to see them get shock downs. They'd get a lot of incendiary kills. It just has not come through that way. It hasn't been as effective for them as a strategy, and you keep putting Rezik in that fight at E over and over again, and he was showing out in the first few weeks. You're right. Yeah. He kept pressure on the other side of the map because he'd win a bunch of fights up there, but that's because they either got extra damage from a shock, or the shock would trap somebody in the corner, or the incendiary would kill somebody on the back cover. And with those little itty-bitty mistakes, those little inconsistencies, you know as well as I do, especially because you talk about exhibit. If you throw that shock right on that front cover, you throw that incendiary right on that front cover, and you kill the guy at B, and he doesn't get to cap it, and you can maintain that point lead another 10-15 seconds, beautiful. But if you miss it, now you got to push in from the hallways. Same thing on Asylum. You hit the incendiary, you ain't got to push into E. You can sit back, relax, chill out, have a great rest of your day, drink a glass of sweet tea. You missed that incendiary, now all hell's broken loose. Everybody's in the cubby. They're up at the front pillars. You got to make sure you get on that cover and get that over the cover shot off. It's just one of those things where I think that's what I see is as soon as Osby was the consistent player on that squad, whether he was filling in for Sleepy or filling in for Crash, the utility grenade usage got worse on that team on that map.
Yeah, that very well could be it, because I mean, Asylum, almost more so than a lot of other maps, is very utility grenade heavy in terms of influencing the neutral fights, whether it be E-Hill, whether it be a drop in or a weapon in that kind of mid-room pocket area, whether it be out on tracks. So I definitely think that's a really good point, is the utility change for that team might have taken away their strength on their strongest map. So great point. Let's go ahead and move into our next point for us, which is going to be where I talk and you show everybody how to deal and prevent COVID. I'm going to be talking about a quick update, not too much in depth with the LATAM ruling, while Colin adorns an appropriate COVID-19 mask. It's actually a hunting mask, maybe not, the right filters and everything, but the point is there, as well as washes his hands, hand sanitizes. So if you want to learn how to be safe, because a lot of states are opening up, do what this man is doing, wear a mask, use your hand sanitizer. For those of you who haven't seen the update, the news, I believe on Monday, Gears Esports /PGL tweeted out that the ruling for the whole Fire and Ice versus PK situation, based on the proof that they received, Fire and Ice and PK engaged in conversation, specifically Choche and Desanide, about the outcome of the outcome of the matchup that was going to be played, PK versus Estral. I'm so sorry, guys. I'm trying to keep a straight face. PK versus Estral. PK, it looked like engaged and initiated the conversation. Choche offered to pay in order for them to take the win over Estral. Estral was none the wiser. The conversation went back and forth between Choche and Desanide. Choche ended up actually paying for the match to be a win for PK, allowing Fire and Ice to keep second place in the Pro League. PK asked for more money and said some of their teammates didn't want to win the match. They wanted to lose, which on another subject is also against the rules. Thank you, Colin, for the COVID-19 prevention examples. Choche tried to barter with them. PK clearly lost the match, as was obvious to anybody who watched the stream. They threw and weren't trying to win, which goes against the competitive integrity rules. And now he's showing social distancing with 6 feet. So the ruling, long story short, is that Choche and Desanide will be banned for the remainder of the Pro Leagues and in the competitive season or Gears Esports Season 1. Which means all the way through Worlds and the next Pro League split. It also means that both of the teams will forfeit 50% of their prize money from this split of the Pro League. And it means that both teams will be unable to compete in the next online event. Personally, I think given the information that we then saw from Choche's stream where he actually showed the screenshots in the conversation, I think they got off easy. I think that it was clear based on those screenshots that multiple people from both teams were in on the situation, which I know was a big hot point and topic of discussion. I think it's tragic and terrible for Gears Esports. I'm still shocked that some of these players were involved. I respect the hell out of Fire and Ice for the way that they announced and came out and said that they were going to be taking disciplinary action on their end. I'm surprised that Pittsburgh Knights haven't made any type of public statement that I've seen. I've seen a lot of the players trying to deny it or tell their sides of the story, but from what Choche showed on his stream, I don't know how you turn that into two sides of a story. That it was a pretty clear conversation, cut and dry. There was extortion, there was match fixing, and it broke all kinds of rules, let alone laws. So they got lucky, in my opinion. It's tragic, like I said, but they honestly got lucky. I'm shocked that they're not banned for life. I'm shocked that more people aren't banned. So I would count my blessings if I were some of the other players on the rosters, and even Desanite and Choche. It's dumb. It was very, very dumb. And y'all fucked up, honestly. So that is the update with that. Neither of them will be in the upcoming major this weekend, aka tomorrow, which sucks, but it is what it is. Dumb mistakes, dumb asses for a little bit of money. I love them as people, but dumb competitors. So that's it. We'll move on to the next subject so Colin can join us again. Thank you, Colin, for showcasing proper safety for the COVID-19. Colin, please put on your headset, brother, so we can sub to thyAshes. There you go. You heard him, guys. That's how you avoid COVID. You sub to my channel.
Oh man, what I miss? What did I miss?
Oh, nothing. We were just appreciating and thanking you for the COVID-19 prevention tips.
Hey, look, some people just don't realize how important it is to make sure you stay healthy in these times, all right? You got to make sure that you really do your best job to just get out ahead of this thing, keep yourself safe, keep your family safe. I think I gave some great tips in that exposition. I'm just going to go ahead and say it, all right?
100%. I mean, if I'm going to be talking about dumb decisions people are making, you might as well be showcasing smart decisions people can make. So, we all thank you, Colin. Hopefully the world's a little bit of a safer place, courtesy of Colin TheCrow Clarke. Let's talk about predictions for the online major. I don't know where to start. I mean, I'm biased. Admittedly, I am biased.
Get your bias out of here.
We all know what my prediction is. So, Colin, you lead the discussion here about who's fighting for second.
Oh man, my man came out swinging. Who's fighting for second? All right, look. Here we go. I'm going to go out on my limb here this weekend because y'all have heard me say it already. I got UYU on 1. I got Quarantine 2. I know that's a bold statement there, Cotton. I know that's a strategy that not many people might follow. But this is where I think I differ from a lot of people. I think a lot of people are taking other teams, making other teams go up in the rankings, seeing that they're going to play better. Here's my top 3 outside of those 2. My bronze medalist of the weekend. This is going to come as a shock to a lot of people. I got Parallax Gaming coming out with the bronze medal, number 3.
Really?
Number 4, I got Rise. I got y'all beating Parallax to get to grand finals. I got Quarantine beating Rise to get to grand finals. That's my 3-4. Okay. All right? I know we have to drop. I know you have to drop down to losers bracket. So technically, y'all will send Parallax down there, and Quarantine's gonna have to go through both of them because y'all are gonna beat them in winners finals, and then they'll play the winner of Parallax and Rise, and I got Parallax winning that. If that makes sense to you, is that better? Is that a better explanation?
It makes sense. Okay.
All right, so I'm going with them as my top 4, with Rise finish out 4. Number 5, I got the last gasp of LATAM, and it's not Estral. it's Agarthas finishing 5th overall. I think they take this opportunity. They swing above their weight class. They catch a lot of people by surprise and off guard. They win a bunch of games they maybe shouldn't, but they pull it through. They come in the top 5. And then I think we see some disappointments. I see Vanquish finishing in probably top 8. I see PDHM in top 8. I see teams performing, but they just fall short when the pressure gets on them late on a Saturday night or early on Sunday when they come to Championship Sunday. I think it's a difference. People have seen this single elimination style. Okay, we saw it Mexico City, or what was PDHM, now is Vanquish. They got to see single elimination. They knew that every match is what mattered, and the pressure was always heightened. I think teams got used to single elim, and now it may or may not come back to bite them, because I think a lot of teams are going to be a little too comfortable thinking that they have a second chance lance, when in reality I think you have to play every single one of these matches like it was your last breath. I think you have to go into this weekend like it was single elimination, because everybody's playing at such a high level that you're gonna have teams just beating other people senseless because they're not going to take it as seriously. That's why I think Agarthas is going to catch up to a lot of people, because I feel like that team takes every match seriously because they look at it as their only opportunity to get any kind of shine. So I see Agarthas being my dark horse. They're going to come out of this thing. They're going to come flying to a finish. They're going to try their best to get to that top 6 range. They might finish. I think they're going to finish 5th, 6th overall. Genuinely, I believe that. The top 4 teams that we've all seen and have talked about a lot this weekend, but I got y'all 1, I got Quarantine 2, and then I got Parallax and Rise finishing there at 3, 4 in that respective order. I think Rise's inconsistencies will come back to bite them. I think eventually it's going to be one of those things where it takes one bad game in loser's bracket and you're done. And I think that's what's going to be their death knell. I think Quarantine is a more consistent team. They'll continue to move on in the bracket until they meet y'all in winners final, and then they come back and meet you again in grand final. But it's just one of those things where those are my 2 big surprises. I got Parallax 3 overall. I would say bronze medalist, but they're going to be considered third, fourth place, and then I got Agarthas finishing in the top 6. I really see them being my dark horse. They're my surprise team for the weekend.
Interesting. So I'm looking at Agarthas now. Agarthas recently lost the most recent LATAM Challenger Finals to Carnage. So do you see Carnage making any kind of waves or upsets from the Latin American region? So
Carnage is going to do the same thing. They're going to come out and they're going to play every match as if it was their last. And they have a player that I really love on that team whose name is Ottens. I think Ottens has a great head on his shoulders for the game. He has a lot of these really good rotations, but a lot of the times it's the right rotation at the wrong time. It's either a few seconds too early or it's a few seconds too late. And when it's too early, he gets killed. And when it's a few seconds too late, his teammates get killed. They played in that They played in the Gears Community Series with us when we had it as Escalation, and they actually beat Hive in the Gears Community Series on Escalation. They did a great job of it. That was the week they won it. And in my head, I'm like, man, they got a chance to show up on teams. But then I thought about Hive struggles, and I said, well, maybe that's just part of the Hive struggles, and Carnage isn't really that. And I look at it as, I think what they got to do going into this weekend is they've got to figure out exactly the spots that they need to be in, or especially where they can put Ottens to make those plays, because he was a big time playmaker for him all night long. And I think one of those things is when you get him into the right spots, they perform that way. They beat a team like Hive. I think their struggles are going to come when they play much more structured teams like y'all, like Quarantine, like Parallax. They're going to struggle against those teams that like to set up and aren't going to get baited into their shotgun fights, aren't going to get baited into their playmaking abilities, if that makes sense. So as good as they were against Agarthas is one of those teams that can get baited into those shotgun fights, that can try to be flash and dash with them. So I see they might do well against those teams, but the second they get into a champ bracket and maybe first round, they got to go up against the top tier team like y'all, like a Rise, like a Parallax, like a Quarantine. It's going to be a bad day for them, because I just feel like setups are what their weakness is. They can't seem to break through them as much as possible. They can't, because especially people aren't willing to bait into those fights. So that's why I didn't say Carnage was going to finish 5th, 6th. I see Krabby as kind of being that standout player. We're going to see him all weekend. We're going to say his name a lot. And I think that will be their death knell as well. That's why I didn't put them any higher than top 6, is they struggle against breaking those same setups.
Interesting. I can see I agree with you. I think we're going to see us. I think we're going to see I hope we see us. I think we're going to see Quarantine. I think we're going to see Rise all placing up near the top. I think VQ is going to cause an upset. I don't know who or where, but I feel like VQ is the type of team that a team might underestimate and they're going to pull up. I think that Estral, I love those guys, but I feel like they're going to come out flat. I think Hive, from what I've heard, is boot camping together. So I can see Hive being more on par with what we would expect from them rather than what we've seen from them.
So they're all playing from the same location?
From what I've heard. I don't know for sure. I've heard they're all in New York.
I just did an expose on social distancing, and they're all playing. I'll be back. I got to go talk to you.
But if that's true, I mean, I think a lot of teams are changing up their setups, their home setups to accommodate. Yes, I have been eating good, Don Hector. To accommodate what what their difficulties were for online stuff and fixing that. For example, we saw Shock tweet out internet speed tests where he has fiber internet with 1,000 down, 1,000 up. So he's making some sort of, I don't know if he's in a different spot. I don't know if he just got a different internet line. If the rumor is true and Hive is all sitting next to each other for this event, I think that's a huge plus for them. So I think that
changes the game entirely. You know that, right?
Yeah, it does. So I think we're going to see a lot of teams who we might have been disappointed by for the Pro League play to the standards that we would expect. I think that VQ will cause an upset. And I think because, in my opinion, Fire and Ice and PK were the top two teams in LATAM because they're not in this anymore.
Who?
Yeah, they who shall not be named. I think Estral has the chance to place top 8, but I don't see which would be better than Mexico, because I'm pretty sure Mexico was top 16 or top 12 for them. I don't see them causing waves. I don't see Agarthas causing any waves. The teams that I actually want to keep an eye on are the North American the North American amateur teams. Pain, aka X Mazer La Familia. I think they can cause, I mean, that's a good team. That's still a good team. They can cause some upsets if they're underestimated in any regard. You've got Speedy's roster, who I think right now their team name is ZZZZ. They have that whole we could cause upsets underdog story. I think Kyle and his team is in it, and then Nunez's team is in it. And Kyle's team apparently is we haven't gotten a chance to scrim them, but they've actually been playing pretty well from what I've heard. So I think we have for the first time, amateur teams who are in the Pro League and have Pro League experience, therefore they're pro teams, and then old school pro teams that have pro experience because people will still scrim them because they respect the names on the rosters. So it's almost like we've got more Pro League teams than we ever have, just because of the way the roster manias and the qualifiers and everything worked for this split. So I really think that whole 16th through top 8 contention is going to be insane. And then I think that we could see some of those teams make some surprises in the top 8. As much as I said VQ can cause an upset, I could also see Pain coming in and dethroning VQ, being nope, that was our Pro League spot. Thanks for keeping it warm for us. And let us show you what a real pro team is. Not going to count out VQ, but I just think this is the first time where it's been really interesting from my point of view.
So what you're saying is that this event really should have taken place in Texas, because this is going to be a Wild West shootout from 8 to 16. Is that what you're telling me? It's just going to be who's left standing after they let go of the rest of the Bull Talk clip?
100%. And I think the fact that we're doing it online, as much as that's sucks, it's going to just throw in that many more curveballs for people. You never know when somebody's going to lag trying to get a crucial kill, and that causes the game to go in another team's favor. So I think this is going to be a really interesting major. It's almost hard to call it a major. I feel because of the the circumstances and the situation. But
hey, are you playing for 80K? That's a little major to me. All right, I don't know about you, but 80K ain't never been nothing minor in my book.
No, the prize money is major. The level of teams is major. It's just there's been so many things that have happened because of what I talked about in the last segment, because of the fact that it's online and not at a LAN event. It's just, it feels like a very weird major, but I think that weirdness is going to also carry over into the gameplay. I think we're going to see weird matches, ones that you wouldn't expect. And I even, just looking at the groups, which I don't know if it's public information. I mean, they tweeted out the matches, so it's public information. They've done the Swiss bracket differently for this one. So there's only 6 teams,
It's it's the strongman group
literally.
and it's the strongman group, and then I'm trying to the McDonald's group. That's the word I'd go for.
Well, I don't want to be insulting, but it's pretty much divided.
I'm not trying to be insulting. They're still there. They're still pro league teams, but there's clearly one group that is the why we used to call it the group of death. I mean, that's exactly what it is. There's one group of death and one group hanging out.
Yeah, they purposefully created a group of death and a group of contenders. They call it Premier and Contenders. So Group 1 or Group A is UYU, Quarantine, Rise, Astral, Parallax, and VQ, Vanquish. And it would have been, I believe, PK in that group if the things hadn't gone the way they did. And then the other group is Hive, Rebel, PDHM, E-Storm, Carnage. And E-Storm is the last place pro league team from LATAM.
Yeah.
Carnage and Agarthus, the top 2 AM teams from LATAM. So we've basically got like a very staticky Friday because good teams are guaranteed to play good teams no matter what. And the reason for this is because I believe all of these teams get a first round bye regardless. I could be wrong, but I believe that's how it's structured. And then, or at least most of them. And then the way it's seeded into, I don't know for sure. It's a very weird format, but either way, Friday is going to be crazy matches. They stacked one group on purpose. So I'll be very interested to see how this plays out. I mean, that's kind of like the pace setter. Tomorrow is the we'll see how fast and how hard everyone's coming into the weekend.
Hey, look, there's one thing that I know for certain is that I need to go ahead and get into bed so that I can wake up and get a shower and get, suited and booted and get ready to be on camera because I can't wait for this shit to start. I'm chomping at the bit. I've been salivating all day. I've been having to listen to all this speculation and all this wild talk, and I'm just ready to get down to the action. I'm ready to wash my hands clean of all this nonsense of predictions and get into the action, baby. That's what I'm chomping for. I'm salivating. I'm hungry. It's like I ain't eaten in 6 months.
Well, I'm excited for it as well. And show should everybody who's watching, and I think that's going to end this show. I've got to go be part of an LPL match. So thank you guys for tuning in. Make sure you guys are tuning in to the broadcast for this weekend's online major, live.gearsofwar.com. Lots of cool things that you can win, not only just skins, but exclusive limited edition Astro Gears Esports merch. And obviously you win the chance to hear Colin's voice.
Oh, God. Nobody wants that. I think it starts, what is it? Is it 11 a.m. Eastern, 10 Central?
11 a.m. Eastern, 10 Central. Our first match will be at noon Central, 1 p.m. Eastern, if you guys are UIU fans out there. So thank you all for tuning in, for listening. Colin, any final words?
Love you, brother. Thank you. I'm glad I got to help save the world a little bit today. Maybe some people learned some stuff, but don't forget to tune in tomorrow. Again, I gotta give a big shout out to UMG. If you're playing in it, if you see this before you get to play tomorrow, make sure you show them respect. Don't burn time. Make sure you get your matches reported. Make sure you work with their people to get the picks and bans in. We only got one shot to show out that Gears of War can do an online major. There's been these struggles with all these other online events. People have had, backs and forths. They've had a lot of problems. Let's have a good word with everything going on, with everything that's happening in this world. Let's have a good showing. Let's show that Gears isn't in a bad light, that we can move on from this. We can focus on our matches and make them look great and make it run smooth and show that when the barrel is to the mouth, if we're going to get shot, we're going to get shot with our own gun. We're not going to go out because of technical issues or disconnects or problems with people wasting time. Let's be above this and let's do good and be good this weekend.
You heard the man. All I can picture now is the SpongeBob like 12 hours later, and then it's just somebody getting DC'd in the middle of the
just immediate. And it's just me. It's me taking my headset off again, going to talk to somebody. God dang, I gotta go talk to somebody.
Colin has jinxed us officially. Thank you to everybody who's followed the stream and subscribed. Shout out to all of you guys who have tuned in. This will be on YouTube in the next couple days. Tune into the Gears Esports broadcast this weekend. Y'all are awesome, and we will see you next week for our recap episode. Have a good weekend, everybody.